The river was low that summer night, its dark surface barely rippling in the wind. A young couple drove the back roads near the Rio Grande, their windows rolled down to let in the warm air. That's when they heard it. A cry, faint at first, so faint it could have been the wind, but it rose, long and broken, a woman's sob carrying across the water. They slowed the car. The sound grew sharper, closer. The girl leaned out, straining to see. Nothing but reeds shifting by the riverbank. Then, a figure, white against the darkness. A woman, head bowed, hair dripping, hands reaching toward the water. She raised her face. Eyes like hollow sockets stared back. Her skin stretched pale and wet across her bones. And as the car's headlights swept over her, her scream split the night. A piercing, unearthly wail that seemed to come from everywhere at once. This is the story of La Llorona, the weeping woman.
Welcome to Strange Tracks, your gateway to forgotten myths, strange creatures, and unsolved mysteries come to life. If you're drawn to the eerie and unexplained, subscribe and stay curious.
Her story has been told for centuries, whispered by firelight, carried in lullabies meant not to soothe but to warn. The most common telling begins with a beautiful woman, born in a humble village. She caught the eye of a wealthy man, sometimes a landowner, sometimes a Spanish conquistador. They fell in love and had children, but he abandoned her for a woman of his own class. Blinded by grief, twisted by betrayal, she led her children to the river and drowned them in its depths. When she realized what she had done, she screamed for mercy, but it was too late. Overcome by guilt, she took her own life in the same waters. Now her soul wanders endlessly, denied rest in the afterlife. She roams riversides and canals, crying out for the children she lost and stealing away those of others. Her appearance is described in many ways, but certain details never change. A woman in white, sometimes veiled, her gown torn and dripping with water, her hair long, dark and matted to her face, her skin pale, stretched thin across hollow cheeks, her hands skeletal, clutching as though forever reaching for what she lost, and her eyes, empty hollow sockets staring back from the darkness. And in some regions, her vengeance extends beyond children. Folklore warns that La Llorona seeks out unfaithful men. She lures them to the water's edge, appearing first as a radiant woman in white, but when they draw near, her beauty collapses into horror. Sunken eyes, skeletal hands, and a scream that drowns out their own as she drags them beneath the surface. Always, she is heard before she is seen, that long, echoing cry carried by water and wind. Ay, mis hijos, my children. For generations, sightings of La Llorona have whispered across Mexico, Central America, and into the American Southwest. In rural villages, families tell of hearing her cries along riverbanks at night. Children are warned, don't wander after dark or she may find you. In the 1980s, 2 police officers were called to a report of a woman crying by the riverside. They searched with flashlights, calling out into the reeds. One officer swore he saw her, a woman in a white dress, walking away from the beam of his light. They ran after her, but the sound of weeping moved faster than they could follow, circling around them, echoing from the water itself. When they regrouped, the reeds were still. No footprints marked the mud where she had stood. Another report tells of a family that was driving home from a gathering late at night. Their young daughter suddenly screamed, pointing at the back window. Her parents saw nothing, but the girl insisted. A woman in white had been keeping pace with their car, her dress billowing, though there was no wind. The father pulled over, shaken, but the roadside was empty. For the rest of the night, the girl wept uncontrollably, saying La Llorona's face had pressed right up against her window. Stories like these repeat, from the canals of Mexico City to farm roads in Colorado. Always the same. The crying woman, white dress, river water clinging to her skin. The beginnings of La Llorona's legend are tangled in history and myth. Some trace her to colonial Mexico. Chroniclers in the 1500s wrote of a woman who wandered at night, wailing over her children. Some believe this merged with the story of Doña Marina or La Malinche, the indigenous woman who aided Hernán Cortés, a Spanish conquistador. Branded a betrayer, her grief and her children became fuel for the legend of the Cursed Mother. Others look further back to the Aztec goddess Cihuacoatl, who was said to weep in the streets before the fall of Tenochtitlan, mourning for her doomed children. Still others argue La Llorona's tale works simply as a cautionary story. Rivers are dangerous at night. A child who believes a ghost waits in the reeds will keep a safer distance from the water. But her power is more than practical. She's grief itself personified, the eternal mourning mother, a figure who is both villain and victim, a warning against betrayal, and a reminder that sorrow once unleashed may never rest. La Llorona endures because her story touches something primal, the sound of crying where no one should be, the dread of unseen danger near water, the fear of losing children, or of a mother's love twisted into something monstrous. Every culture knows the ghostly woman in white, but in the Americas, she has a name, and she is still walking. To some, she is a tragic warning to live faithfully, to guard your family, to respect the water's edge. To others, she is the embodiment of vengeance, snatching the innocent to soothe her endless grief. But whether you see her as tragic or terrifying, she is still there. So if you walk by the water and hear weeping in the dark, don't answer, don't follow, because the next voice you hear might not belong to the living. This was The Weeping Woman, part of our Strange Tracks series. If you want more cryptids, cursed legends, and stories that refuse to die, support, like, and share. Until next time, this was Strange Tracks. Follow carefully.